Hi, Karen Curry Parker here, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about the mechanics of intuition, fundamental creativity, and why understanding your intuition makes you smarter and more creative. Most importantly, I want to share with you a little bit about why intellect and reason aren't actually going to save the world. Before we can have this discussion, we've got to start with some basic building blocks to helping you understand how you can become fundamentally creative and the components around fundamental creativity, and of course, the difference between your regular creativity, your situational creativity, and your fundamental creativity, and why knowing the difference between those two kinds of creativity is very, very important. Before we can have that conversation, I want to break it down to you and help you understand the energy components of your human experience. The information that I'm going to share with you today is a beautiful synthesis of not only ancient esoteric sciences, but actually modern quantum physics. I hope you'll enjoy this brief overview of some very, very basic concepts in fundamental creativity. And I hope you understand that one of the greatest gifts that we can give the world right now is learning how to become more fundamentally creative. Let's start first by looking at the ways in which you create, actually the science, not only the quantum science, but also the esoteric science of the human creative experience. There is, in the way in which we create, an infinite realm of possibility, sometimes known as the quantum field, sometimes known as the 0 point, sometimes known as the supramental field of archetypes. Basically, there is, beyond the time-space continuum, an unlimited potential of possibilities that are waiting to be made manifest in this world. But for us to make those possibilities show up in our awareness, in our reality, in our consciousness, we have to be able to know how to tap into that quantum field, that place where the solutions to the challenges facing us on the planet right now already exist, waiting for us to pull them back into our consciousness, our awareness, and into our reality. This is true not only, of course, of the solutions that face all the challenges of the world. This is also the place where there are solutions to your own personal challenges. This is the place where perhaps the answer for how you need to make more money lies. This is the place where the answer to what you need to do to create a deeper, more closer bond in your relationship lives. This is the place where the answer to how you can tap into greater health, greater happiness lives. There are so many possibilities, an infinite number of possibilities that we can be living out. But our own experience in the earthly plane conditions what we will allow ourselves to experience. Before we can actually make manifest or create in our physical reality one of those infinite possibilities out of the quantum field, that possibility has to be filtered through the second layer or the second energy system that we play with and we create with, called the mental and the emotional body. The mental and the emotional body is the place where you carry what we sometimes call your conditioning. This is the place where your genetics, your belief systems, your energy, your traumas, your pains, your joys, everything about you being you and everything that's brought you to this moment in time is stored in these mental, emotional bodies, these layers of your energy field. And before you can create or pluck a possibility out of the quantum field and drop it into your current physical reality, it has to be filtered through all of these different experiences and all of these different energies. Your conditioning will very much affect or influence what you will allow yourself to be aware of, and ultimately what you will allow yourself to bring into your physical reality. Once an inspiration has been pulled out of the quantum field, the realm of archetypes or the supramental body, and filtered through the emotional body and the mental body, it then begins to take form in a blueprint outside of the physical reality of your life in what is called the subtle body. The subtle body, which is also sometimes known as the aura, or in more scientific terms, this is the morphogenetic field. In more esoteric terms, Abraham Hicks refers to this as either your vibrational escrow or your vortex. This energy template isn't necessarily things that have been made manifest yet, but it is the blueprint for things that are possibly and very likely going to be showing up in your physical reality. If you've ever had acupuncture done, or you've used homeopathy or flower essences or essential oil, or even studied Ayurveda, any of these more subtle energy, or sometimes called alternative or holistic therapies, usually really tackle only the subtle energy body or the subtle body level of the aura, the blueprint or the template of what's holding the possibility of what you then make manifest in your reality. So I'm going to show you another image just to sort of help you integrate this in a different way visually. No matter what, because to a certain degree, we're limited to how we understand things by our deep training and logic. I'm showing you this in kind of a very linear format because that's how the human brain understands things best usually. Please know that it's not really so linear. It's not like you've got this single layer and then the next layer and the next layer. There's more fluidity and expansion around how these energy layers work together, but they do work together. And to a certain degree, there is a certain, dare I say, pattern or logic to how these systems work together. So you can see in this particular image, just a different way of visualizing this, that possibilities extracted from the supramental realm of archetypes filter through the emotional body, the mental body, your conditioning field, that place where you are processing inspiration through your own perspectives, your belief systems, your experiences, and more. That through that filtering through the mental body layer and the emotional body layer, a template or a blueprint is formed in the energetic layer of your aura, holding the potential for you to then make manifest in your physical reality whatever it is, that inspiration, that idea, that aha is that you plucked out of the supramental realm of archetypes or the quantum field, or if you want to use different language, an inspiration that you got from God, divine inspiration, whatever you want to call it. It gets filtered through your own ability to receive it, your own perception of it, creates an energy template, and then ultimately you manifest it into your physical form. This is important to understand because it's going to help you understand the answer to the question, what exactly is creativity? Because we're not really trained to understand what creativity is. We have a tendency to think creativity is something we did in art class at school. When I talk to my clients, I'll tell you most of the people I know tell me, and there's no way I'm creative. I'm not a creative person. I promise you that if you are living and breathing and walking on this planet right now, you are absolutely and utterly creative. If I give you a thought, for example, if I say to you, think of your mother. When you think of your mother, which is, by the way, just a neutral archetype, when you think of your mother, is your mother living in your brain? No, right? Your mother is an idea. It's a neutral idea, but once it gets processed through your conditioning field, your mental body, your emotional body, it triggers your brain from this idea, from this thought, which, by the way, this thought hits your brain in the form of light, in the form of photons. These photons create a storm in your brain that, through your conditioning field, trigger a specific neurotransmitter production that creates a specific emotional response. So from light, you created a chemical, a neurotransmitter, that then stimulated in you a vision, a memory, a thought, maybe even an emotion. So from one word, you created from light, from a transmission of light, you created a physical, manifested expression of light into form. So don't ever tell me, or tell yourself, most importantly, that you're not creative. You're creative. But we got to understand, what does it mean to be creative? And how can you start deliberately tapping into the fundamental creativity that's available to you in a conscious and a deliberate way? When we talk about creativity, there are really two different kinds of creativity: situational creativity and fundamental creativity. Situational creativity happens in the moment. It is reactive. So it's in relation to a particular situation that manifests in your physical reality. How you react to something is very much determined by your conditioning. If you have been traumatized in your lifetime by a history of being chased by bears over and over again, maybe you grew up in Alaska or Montana, and you've been chased by bears and you've been traumatized by bears, you might find that whenever you see a bear or a picture of a bear or a story about a bear, you have a fight or flight response or a panic attack. That is a reactive event, situational creativity, that is a result of your conditioning. That's, of course, a very extreme event or extreme circumstance, but that's happening to us all the time. The way in which we are most trained to be creative is situationally creative. We are trained to react, find short-term solutions, use finite answers to situations facing us, meaning answers that come from our conditioned mind. Your mind is deeply conditioned. The way in which you think, the patterns through which you think, have been deeply entrained upon you by your life experiences and more, which I'm going to show you about in just a minute. So when you're using your mind, you're actually using a very conditioned tool to tackle a problem. And consequently, because you're a human being, and when you're using your mind, you're really using your physical brain, which is a finite, material, physical manifested form that's been filtered through your conditioning, your emotional level, your vital body level. It's been into your subtle blueprint. It's now in your physical form. The problems that you are tackling and solving using your mind, your reasoning, your logic, your thinking are all very finite in nature and are going to be limited to what it is that you know. The result of situational creativity or situational creativity comes strictly from thinking, and it is technically reasonable. There's nothing wrong with this if you're tackling a math problem, or if you're paying for your groceries in the grocery store, or if you're calculating how much bus fare you need, or even if you're trying to figure out a route for a trip that you're going to drive your car on. These are reasonable ways of using the mind, and it's actually really what the mind is best suited for. It's a great tool for navigating on the material plane. But the problems and the challenges facing us right now, or sometimes the problems and the challenges facing us in our life, particularly if we're seeking to grow and evolve and respond to life from a more expansive place, from a more enlightened place, maybe we're trying to get out of old patterns that we've been doing over and over again that aren't working. We want to change the way in which we respond to life and become more creative. We can't tackle it with our mind, the limitations of our reasoning, the limitations of our physical brain, and frankly, from the limitations of our previous experience. The truth is, especially on a global level, the challenges that are facing us right now are challenges that we have not ever dealt with before. So we don't really have a database, a series of logical patterns from which we can draw to seek and find answers to problems that perhaps have never been here before. Maybe they say they've definitely never been here before. And if we're going to come up with new, creative, sustainable solutions that are going to ensure the well-being of the planet, we need to find a different source of answers, a different place to look for the possibilities that we need to bring into our reality to create something different, which means that we have to become more fundamentally creative. Fundamental creativity transcends your conditioning. It allows you ultimately in your physical reality to make a quantum leap over the subtle body level, over the mental, the emotional layer of the aura, straight into the quantum field. And if you can go back and think about the slide that I showed you with the light blue figure sitting in the multiple layers of the aura, literally we have to make a leap over a big chunk of the aura and go straight to the quantum field. We have to bypass those filters that keep us from allowing ourselves to see other infinite possibilities. Fundamental creativity is delivered to us in an aha moment. Some of you may have experienced those out of the blue, maybe when you're on a walk or you're meditating. And for me, my biggest thing is if I get into the shower, I know I'm going to get hit with a bunch of ahas. So I actually keep waterproof crayons in my shower so I can scribble my inspirations, my ahas, my fundamentally creative solutions on the walls of my shower. Fundamental creativity has an infinite source. It comes from the realm of archetypes and even beyond. So it's not limited to answers that we've had before or even limited to reasoning and logic. It is imaginative and possibility oriented and consequently is less linear. So it comes to us oftentimes in a big download. We don't just get one little step, and oftentimes we don't even get the instruction manual. That sometimes shows up later, right? But it is imaginative and possibility oriented. It is potential. It is a potential that inspires fundamental creativity in a direction that perhaps has never been taken before. It is aligned with what we call cosmic order. And I'm not going to get too much into that in this particular discussion, but let's just say that there is a cosmic order to life and that the nature of cosmic order is goodness and truth and love and beauty and most importantly, abundance. There's no lack in the universe. Lack comes from our conditioning. Lack comes from our perspective. The universe itself is not fundamentally lacking. In fact, it is fundamentally quite abundant, and it's up to us to discover fundamentally creative ways to align with that abundance. Of course, it stands to reason then that fundamental creativity is unreasonable. So how do we become more fundamentally creative? I'm going to run through just a couple of quick things for you to think about tonight. Number one, the first thing that we have to do is we have to decondition ourselves. We go back and we look at this model. We know that the vital body is influenced by the mental thoughts, beliefs, constructs, and the emotional experiences in the mental body and the emotional body. This is where the conditioning of our life happens. What we experience is to a certain degree limited or even predetermined by our conditioning. There is 5 kinds of conditioning, 5 different independent, and probably not even just 5, there's probably more, but these are the 5 that I think are the most powerful. There are 5 powerful ways that you are conditioned in your life. The first kind of conditioning comes from imprinting. You're conditioned by your experiences growing up in your family. Your parents condition you. You adopt perhaps some of your parents' belief systems. Maybe you have adopted belief systems that are deliberately 180 degrees opposite of your parents' belief systems. Nonetheless, your parents and the people who raise you, the people who are consistently in your energy field when you are growing up, are going to imprint you. And that imprinting conditions you. It changes the way in which you perceive possibilities, and it changes the way in which you access your fundamental creativity. What we see in science is that there are generational energy patterns, and actually the study of human design, which is a system of personality assessment comprised of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Kabbalah, and quantum physics. What human design shows us is that we actually all have our own unique energy blueprint that carries within it the story of who we are individually, and that your energy blueprint, your unique energy pattern, is actually inherited from your grandparents. So you're actually carrying energy patterns that are similar to your grandparents. And if you can think about this a little bit more intergenerationally, your children and your parents carry a similar energy pattern. And so consequently, you can see how every generation sort of has the opportunity to deal with energy pattern interactions that are similar every other generation. So energy patterns are by nature embedded in multi-generational family dynamics. So a lot of how you perceive the world comes from not only your own experience with your parents, but actually from multi-generational energy patterns that influence your perception of the world, how you raise your children, the kinds of people you get into relationships with. It's not just a matter of growing up and growing, and at 18 figuring out who you are and going out into the world. There's a whole lot more energetic entanglement that has to be undone, or your perspective has to be shifted for you to become more in alignment with your authentic self, who you really are. Of course, your genetics is also going to deeply influence who you are and how you perceive the world. The emerging science of epigenetics shows us that we are not limited to only expressing our genes, that the way in which we express our DNA can be actually quite variable, and that variability is enhanced by protein codes that exist on the DNA that influence whether certain genes get turned on and off. What creates those protein codes is actually determined by what has happened to your family from generations before. There's lots of clear, strong evidence now that shows that a minimum of 2 generations before your actual birth, your genetic expression is being impacted by. So things that happen to your grandparents actually influence the epigenes, the protein codes on your genes, and will influence how your genes get expressed in this lifetime. Now, the interesting thing about this is that your epigenes, those protein codes, are not fixed. They're highly malleable, and they can be changed. In fact, there's a research study that came out last year that showed that a very popular energy psychology technique known as EFT, the emotional freedom techniques, can actually, with 1 hour of treatment, alter your genetic expression on an epigenetic level. So what you eat, your emotional, mental expressions, your conditioning field, your lifestyle, your attitude, everything you're experiencing in your outer reality, as well as everything you do on the inner plane with your consciousness and your awareness, can influence how your genes get expressed. And you are not stuck or limited to the expression of your DNA anymore. You never were before, but now we know why you're not. So your genetics can also be changed. And the more we align our genetic expression with our natural state of abundance, the more we can tap into a realm or a level of fundamental creativity. Collective consciousness is also going to influence your conditioning. The belief systems of the world, the energy of the world is going to influence your capacity to tap into fundamental creativity. Let's think about this for a minute. If you are a highly sensitive person and you read the news on a daily basis right now on this planet today, you are going to be energetically impacted by what happens on this planet. Now, you don't have to read the news to be energetically impacted by the collective consciousness. Quantum physics shows that there is communication happening on a non-local level, meaning it's not transmitted by anything. Okay, it's not transmitted by light, it's not transmitted by electricity, it's not transmitted by some kind of measurable pulse of energy. There is a non-local connection, a psychic connection between all of us. We are all actually connected by this web on a quantum level that is non-local. That web of influence that binds us all together, whether you like it or not, is going to influence your level of consciousness, which is why it's so crucial for as many of us as possible to become fundamentally creative on a consistent level, because it's going to change our collective experience on a fundamental layer or a fundamental level, and consequently open up not only our own personal lives to being able to tap into possibilities from the quantum field, but actually open up the entire collective consciousness of humanity to be able to see solutions that perhaps we cannot see right now. Of course, last but certainly not least, your own energetic experiences and your energy sensitivity that's going to be determined by your unique energy blueprint, your human design, is going to determine how you experience the world. And the way in which you experience the world will condition you. It will make you more prone to having certain belief systems, certain reactions, until you become aware. And when you get to know yourself and how your energy field operates, you start to be able to interpret energy in a different way, in a more fundamentally creative way. So the first thing we said to do to become more fundamentally creative was to decondition yourself. The second thing that you have to do to become more fundamentally creative is to know yourself. The human design system, which, as I said, is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Kabbalah, and quantum physics, shows you your unique energy configuration. It's very different than any other personality assessment tool out there. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use other tools as well. It's just that human design is the only tool that I know that actually shows you how you're hardwired to process energy. It shows you your unique energy configuration. And consequently, it shows you where you're more vulnerable to having your energy influenced by others, where you're more vulnerable to being conditioned. And consequently, it helps you understand that level of filter that's processing fundamental creativity. And it allows you to open it up and clear it out so that you're being more aligned with your authentic self, who you really are, and the way in which you then interpret and process fundamental creativity opens up, and it allows you to be more aligned with the abundance of the universe as it's available to you. So your human design, of course, is also going to show you your life purpose, how you make choices, the hardwiring for your intuition, how you're conditioned, and most importantly, how to best tap into fundamental creativity. The third thing you want to do is you want to stay connected to beauty, well-being, truth, love, and other archetypes that are more aligned with creativity. The truth is, creativity flows in a vibrational level. You're going to be able to process the fundamentally creative ideas that are in alignment with beauty, well-being, truth, love, and other high vibrational archetypes. The more you keep yourself elevated energetically, the more open you are to experiencing more expanded, fundamentally creative answers. We have been taught things like meditation or taking a nap in a hammock or going to an art museum or engaging in a breathtaking, awe-inspiring hike in a beautiful natural setting is sort of a woo-woo fluffy thing that we do. We're sort of taught that these are things you do once you've got your basics of life covered, right? First you get it done, then you have some fun. That was my dad's mantra, right? You don't do the fun, beautiful, breathtaking, awe-inspiring things until later, till you've got all your regular life handled. I'm going to invite you to step into a perspective where we turn that model on its head. That for us to create and to create beautifully and sustainably and fundamentally in this world, we have to first and foremost stay connected to beauty, well-being, truth, love, sustainability, lovability, empowerment, authenticity. All of these qualities of energies are fundamentally more creative than coming from a very limited and rigid place. So flip this model on its head. Go play. Go be in beauty, meditate, nurture yourself, because it's those actions, those steps that actually open us up to experiencing a higher level of creativity and consequently open us up to experiencing more possibilities, more opportunities, more creative insights that might give us the tools we need, the insights we need, the answers we need to create in a fundamentally different way on the planet right now. Certainly, it's also not only going to help you change the planet and make the planet a better place, but as I said before, it'll also enhance your personal life, your own personal state of well-being. And the more you tap into that state of well-being, the more fundamentally creative you get. So you can see it's a pretty awesome cycle to get into. So jump on it as fast as you can. Fourthly, trust yourself. Self-doubt is actually a logical energy. If you think about the energy of logic, which is best exemplified by the scientific process. The scientific process starts with a hypothesis, right? A possibility. But as soon as we generate a possibility in scientific methodology, the first thing we have to do is to doubt it and then prove it to be true. We are deeply conditioned to be logical. Our school systems are logical. Our business systems are logical. Our factory model is logical. Our medical system is logical. Everything we know, for the most part, in our human experience is rooted in Newtonian physics, physical material physics, as well as the industrial model of life. The truth is, humans need logic for very important things like it's good to prove that a drug works, or it's good to prove that a certain chemical is or isn't toxic. These are important uses for logic. But logic does not apply very well to being human. Humans are not actually particularly logical. You cannot formulate or systematize humans. There are 9 billion plus people on this planet, and each one of them is configured in a unique, different way. And not only are they configured in unique and different ways, they are influenced and impacted or conditioned by not only their own life experiences, but by the experiences of generations before them. You cannot create models around humans. It is important that we discover ways to learn about who we are, how we operate, and then to learn to trust ourselves. How many times have you known what you needed to do, or maybe you even knew what the answer was to something, and you didn't listen to yourself, and then in hindsight went, I wish I'd done that. I knew I shouldn't have done that, right? That's the first step in learning to trust yourself. Hindsight's a great teacher. I'd like to invite you into stepping into a place where you trust yourself before you make the mistake or before you don't listen to yourself, and you act from a more fundamentally intuitive, creative place. It is your intuition, not your reasoning, but your intuition that actually allows you to make that quantum leap over your conditioning field, over your energy template sometimes, into the quantum realm of infinite possibility, and to drop back down into your awareness, an answer that transcends the linear model of thinking. Would you like to learn how to become more fundamentally creative? If you're really interested in embarking on a journey of self-discovery, a journey of deconditioning, a journey of mastering the mechanics of how you can use your intuition to tap into the quantum field and to become more fundamentally creative, I want you to join me for a brand new program that I have called Intuition by Design. In this program, you're going to learn exactly what you need to do to decondition yourself. You're going to discover who you really are, most importantly, your unique energy hardwiring, and how that influences the way in which your intuition works. I'm going to show you, and you're going to learn how you can decondition yourself so that you are living more true to who you really are, and most importantly, more in alignment with the fundamental creativity that's available to you, and you'll have a deeper, more consistent, and instant access to that level of fundamental creativity. I want you to do this not only because I think that you're worthy of a life where you are aligned with your abundance in every area of your life, whether it's in your relationships, your physical health and wellness, your finances, your creative fulfillment, even in your connection to spirit and source. Not only that, your capacity to tap into your fundamental creativity adds to the capacity for everyone else around you to also be able to tap into that place of fundamental creativity. And the more of us who can become fundamentally creative, deliberate, conscious, less reactive, the more abundance we can create in this world. We are standing on the edge of a potential for a beautiful shift on this planet. Your ability to become fundamentally creative, your creative inspiration, and you being who you really are, adds to the greater good of the whole. You are here to serve on the leading edge of consciousness, and I welcome you and I celebrate you in all that you're here to learn and do. Thank you for being you.